we're now years into the PS5 generation. We're like, what, 5 years in now? And basically, Sony has been talking about their PS6 strategy a little bit. And what their strategy being top of mind is that cloud streaming is going to remain ancillary to local play. Now, I have a bit of an umbrage with the word local play because I feel like what they're talking about is just booting games locally rather than letting people play, multiplayer on like one system, but I digress. That being said, however, that's bloody well good to know. I would rather be able to download games to my device and play them as is than to play through games through some sort of cloud service, because especially in my local neck of the woods, we don't get access to services that are cloud-based. Yes, I could probably I can get access to Xbox Game Pass and cloud streaming here in my local region, but the thing is that we don't have access to PlayStation's streaming service. It's not available here. So honestly, and for me, as someone who does play remote play at work while my PS5 is at home, it's worth keeping in mind that there is a lot of a massive delay. Obviously, using my phone is not as good as using a controller and a bunch of other things. So normally I use more sort of less active games that I just need to press a few buttons for that I would actually play across remote play. That being said, hopefully my boss doesn't find out, but I'm pretty sure he's seen me with my phone a lot anyways. So moving on from that. So yeah, there's nothing better than playing a game locally on your own machine than it is through any cloud online based streaming service. And that's a good thing to hear, because in a business interview, PlayStation top execs are asked about the future of the platform, and they were asked whether cloud streaming negates the need for a new console or whether PlayStation is making one. President and CEO Hideaki Nishino made it pretty clear that not only is PS6 in the works, but cloud-based gaming will remain an option rather than the sole focus, and it bloody well better be the case. Nishino described PlayStation's 11-year history with cloud streaming services, which is insane how long they've had access to Gaikai at this point, and they're happy with what's been achieved so far. He stresses that the business model for cloud gaming must be sustainable for long-term growth. Yeah, sure, whatever. He continues saying that end-to-end network stability is not in our control, and that the higher cost per playtime compared to traditional console model remains a challenge. Okay, so it costs them a lot more to really get that sussed out. That's fair. And of course, end-to-end network stability, that is on network providers to do better. And the thing is that those providers are also the same ones that are constantly upcharging network costs over and over again to make the internet, and especially relatively speedy internet, not as accessible as it potentially could have been. Anyway, Nishino calls cloud gaming an additional option for players to access content rather than something to build the business around. Our belief is that the majority of players continue to want to experience games through a local execution without dependency on network conditions. Hell yes, this is the most corporate way of saying it, but I absolutely love seeing the words. Let's see. Experience gaming through a local execution without dependency on network conditions. That is brilliant, because in a roundabout way, this is going to seem really funny because I read this statement slightly differently in my mind because it was referring to something else. So remember how Ubisoft was releasing games on discs. Let's look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example. If you try to boot up the disc version of Assassin's Creed Shadows without internet, you cannot execute the game locally because you are required to have a network, which is a network condition. So basically, the fact that I hate the idea, so at least PlayStation is not going to be like, we're releasing games on discs, but that those discs won't require the internet at least. Even though that's not necessarily what he's saying, that was just the first thing that came to my mind, and I figured it would be worth mentioning just because. But yeah, He says there's a huge interest in PlayStation's next generation strategy, which obviously the PS5 hasn't been the greatest generation, especially on the PlayStation side. I can say that with absolute conviction that like the PS1 was excellent, PS2 was also excellent, PS3 was also excellent, PSP, PS Vita, these were all excellent, and yet somehow the PS5, I cannot say the same. I have not had anywhere near as many good first-party titles. Third-party titles are coming across both PS4 and PS5 even now, 5 years later into the generation. And those games that are PS5 only haven't really defined themselves to be all that much different. And you could say the same thing for like, PS3, PS4, and whatever have you. But you could at least see some differences and an eventual cutoff of older platform titles in favor of newer platform titles. You know what I mean? That hasn't happened yet for the PS5, and it may not even happen at all. Who the hell knows? When we get access to the PS6, like when the actual device is released, will we have access to the PS4 PlayStation Store? Will we have access to the PS5 PlayStation Store? How far back will the backwards compatibility go? That is an interesting question to ask, and I don't think anyone is going to have a good answer for it. But yeah. And so yeah, people are looking forward to seeing what the PS6 is going to be, because the PS5 just ain't delivering as well as people would have liked. So he goes on to say, while we can't share further details at this stage, the future of the platform is top of mind. Nishino concludes by saying they are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services. And I wonder what that means from his perspective, huh? I'm hoping like some sort of handheld, but who knows. In other words, Sony's sticking to its usual generational console cadence, with PS5 no doubt being in development right now. Furthermore, cloud streaming will remain an option, but not a focal point. Cool, we already kind of talked about that. Rumor has it that in addition to the PS6 home console, PlayStation, Sony is making a handheld companion device that'll likely be in the similar form and function to Xbox's just announced Xbox Ally, which calling it an Xbox Ally is just completely like, no, don't do that. I think it should just be known as the Ally X Xbox Edition, and that's it. Because it's an Asus product that is just being made in partnership with Microsoft that just has an Xbox button on it. Xbox is not making their own operating system for it. Like, they aren't doing anything particularly special, at least from what I can tell so far, since Xbox releases most of their games on PC. Who knows, you might just be booting the PC version of those games. How will Xbox achievements carry over? Will you be able to earn achievements there and sync it to the Xbox service? Who the hell knows? Like, there's a lot of stuff going on that I would much rather be looking at and talking about instead. So yeah, it's just an interesting spot to be in, to look at what the PS6 is going to be and kind of how that is ultimately going to shake up in the not too distant gaming future, and especially from a business perspective for Sony, because they have kind of whimpered and failed a lot this generation, especially with the shutdown and cancellations of multiple released and unreleased live services that were in development. Who knows how much further that's going to go on into the future. But with all of that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.